Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this advanced wirework tree of life, and I'll just show you a few examples so you can get some ideas of maybe what to do with it. So what I've done with my trees of life is I've basically made a little collection, because I've made a few different trees, one to each represent their own season of the year. And this is the first one. They're all basically made the same, but I've used different beads in that. This I've used rose quartz chips, so that's just to represent when in the spring a tree is in full bloom with those nice pink flowers and that. So that's the first one. And this is to represent a tree in the summer. So for this I've used some green diopside chips, and then I've used some little round garnet beads, basically to symbolise a tree that's all nice and green but with berries on it. So that's for the summer. And then this one is the one I already showed you in the intro, and it's also the one I'm going to be showing you on the video. This is to represent the autumn, and I've added a little swing just to give a bit of interest to it. And this is some orange agate chips I've used for this. And then for the winter season I've made this with rainbow moonstone chips. And this will probably be hard to pick up on camera, but as you move it in different directions and different light, because it's rainbow moonstone, it works best in daylight really. You get these blue flashes from them, which I thought would give it a really nice effect. And then the base colour is white, because I thought it's to represent a tree in the winter that's covered in snow. So that's for the winter season. And then the final tree in my Tree of Life collection is this one, where I've incorporated all the seasons in the same tree. I wanted to do one where all the seasons were represented in the same pendant, because I thought it could be kind of a nice piece. All I've done is I've used all the same beads that I did in the individual ones, and I've just gone from spring all the way through and then ended with winter. So this is just to give you a few ideas of what you can do with the Tree of Life. And if you want to learn how to make this particular one, then stay tuned. Right, so what you want to do first is you want to get your 1mm wire out. This is the reel I'm working with. And you firstly you want to measure 2 lengths of this wire. Now for the size pendant that I'm going to show you how to do, you want to have about 40 centimeters of this. So just measure that roughly. And then get your wire cutters and cut. And that's 1 length. Now we can just use this length to measure the other length. So just align them. It doesn't have to be precise, just roughly. There. So you now have your 2 lengths of 1mm wire ready. So you now have the 2 lengths of your 1mm wire, and now what you want to do is, first off, if you need to, you can just use your fingers running along the wire just to straighten it out a little bit. Not as in it needs to be completely straight, but if there's any small little bends or kinks or anything. And then you want to get your 0.4mm wire, because now you want to start off with the weave. Now for this, I am working just straightly off the reel, just because I can't really tell the exact length, because it's quite a bit you need. But also, even if you were to cut it off, you wouldn't be able to work with as long a length in the first place, so you would have to add in anyway. And I find the best way to avoid doing that is just by working off the reel. Also, it helps actually keep it more tidy. So now you have these ready, and you want to start off your weave. So what you want to start with, you get your first 1mm wire. Just start with it on its own, because the first thing you want to do is anchor in your 0.4mm. Now you want to leave quite a long tail because at the end you want to use this to finish it off with. So leave for at least 20 or 30 centimeters, if not a bit more, as a tail. And then all you do is you keep hold of that wire and then you twist the 0.4mm wire around the 1mm wire 3 times to begin with. So you basically have 3 coils. And then you can just kind of bend this tail out of the way so it doesn't keep getting in your way. And just make sure that you squeeze them together nicely. So you have 3 coils in there now. You wrapped it around 3 times. Now you want to get the other wire and lay it right next to the other 1mm wire, and then lay it right next to the other one that you've just been working with. Now, instead of, as you were doing, if you were doing another coil on the same one, you come up through right in between both of them, but then you move over to the other one instead, because this is how you're going to weave them together to form the outer frame of the Tree of Life. What you can do is just bend the ends out a bit, just to give you space to move in and out. Just make sure that this area stays roughly the same distance from each other, because you want the weave to be quite as even as you can get it. So you now come onto this side, coming around that wire. So you come back up through the middle, and every time I do a coil I push it down with my finger to make sure it gets really tight and it just stays really even. And you go back around the same one once again. So you've now got 2 coils on the top one. You come back up through the middle and you go back around the bottom one. Because what you want to do is you want to have 3 coils at a time on the bottom one and only 2 at the top. So that's the second one. And then back around and up through the middle again. And just push them down so they're nice and tight. And now back over the other one, up through the middle. Back over the top one. Push them down and up through the middle. So every time you do a coil and every time you change base wire, you always come up through the middle and back around the bottom one to do another 3 on here. And 3. Push it down. As you can see, you can move the wire, so you don't have to be too careful. Just make sure that you keep moving it back into place if you end up moving out of place as you go. So I've now done 3. I need to come back around the top one, up through the middle, and that's 2. Up through the middle again, and then back down around the bottom 3 times on there. Now you'll notice I'm doing this quite close to the edge of them, whereas obviously you're going to be weaving for quite a bit. The reason for this is if you were going to start down at the other end and sit and weave like this, your 1mm wire will just keep getting in your way. So all you do is just weave at the end, and then as it keeps growing you just push it down and push it down. It's a much easier way of doing it. I've done 3 in there, back up to the top one, do 2 on there, and I'll tell you the reason that I'm doing this particular weave, say 3 on one side and 2 on the other side, is because we're going to be shaping it into a round when we're done with the weave, which means first of all this weave will give us a nice place to then attach other cords, other length of wire into. But also, the reason that I like it is because on the outside wire, the outside ring basically, will have more coils than the inside one, because the inside ring will be just slightly smaller than the outside ring. So it will all make sense later on. So you just continue weaving like this. 3 on the bottom one, keep them tight and push them down. 2 on the top. So I'll try zooming in a bit now, so I hope you can see the actual weave a bit better. I've just done the 2 on the top, come back through the middle, up through, and then it's to the 3 around the bottom. 3 coils around the bottom. And push them down every time. Back up through the top one, and up through the middle. Do 2 on there, coming out through the middle and back around the bottom one. And like I said, just push it down when you've done a decent amount and you need a bit more space on here, and bend these ones outwards a bit, because then when you bring in your wire up through, you have an easy space to come through here. So you just continue this weave, and for the particular size that I'm doing, you want a weave of about 25 centimeters. So do that, and then I'll meet you back here when we reach the next step. So I've now pretty much reached my desired length of the weave. Like I said, for the size pendant that I'm going to show you today, it's going to be just around 25 centimeters. So I'll just show you up close one more time. So like I said, you can see my weave is still very much towards the end, because what I've been doing is I've been weaving up here and then pushing it down gradually as it's grown and grown. So I've just got a few left to do. So right now I've just finished off with 3 on the bottom, 3 wraps around the bottom, and my wire, my weaving wire, is coming out through the middle. So I now take it around the top and push it down. Remember to push it down every time, and then take it around the top once more, push it down again, and again my weaving wire is coming out up through the middle. So this is what I explained. You have 2 wraps around the top, and then you go down and make 3 wraps around the bottom. 1, 2 and 3. I'm going to push them all down, and again my wire is coming out through in between the 2. And then back up to the top twice, and then back down around the bottom one. Make sure you pull it tight so it's a nice and tight weave, and push it down every time. And I'm still working with my wire off the reel. So what I'm just going to do to show you one more time, I hope you're going to be able to see this. If I pull the weave a bit apart, I don't know if you might be able to see that I have 3 wraps around the bottom, and it goes up to the top and then 2 wraps, back down 3 wraps, up 2 wraps. So it's always something you can do just to check, just pull it apart a little bit. So since you've now finished the length that you need your weave to be, what you want to do is, because you still have it towards one end, now we need to work it down. So you just start on one end, just push a little bit at a time. You don't want to be too rough with it. So just do a bit at a time and work it down. And then go back down, do it again. And keep doing this until you get your weave in about the middle of your thicker wide wires that you weaved onto. And remember, a weaving wire, the 0.4, it's still attached to the reel, so we're not done weaving yet. And ideally still just want to do it in one continuous piece. You can add to it if you kind of run out, or if you don't like working with it like this. It's not a big deal, it's just, but even keeping it on the reel as well, it makes it, I think, easier to work with, because you don't have wire going all over the place, because wire does kind of have a mind of its own. Don't worry about this being kind of, as you're working with it, going a bit out of shape and stuff, because we'll be fixing that anyway. So just keep pushing it down till you're pretty happy with where it is. Now if, say, your wires are a bit uneven at the ends, what you can do is, if you find it a bit hard to use your fingers, you can't get a good enough grip, a good tip is to actually get your flat nose plier and just grab onto it and then pull on it, because then sometimes you can weave and your weave gets quite tight, so it's really hard to move, but then using your pliers to grab onto it, that really gives you a good grip. So that's pretty good, I'm pretty happy with that. It's about the middle of my wires now. So get to that point and then I'll show you what to do next. So the next step is to start forming it into the circle to form the frame of the tree of life. All you start doing is just gradually work it and shape it into a circle. Make sure as you're doing this that the weave stays nice and tight and it doesn't come apart too much. So just shape it. And this doesn't have to be a perfect circle yet, because as you keep working with it, it's going to kind of bend our shape anyway, so don't worry too much about it, because we'll be shaping that again at the end. So we'll start off with about that, and we still have on one end the wire still attached to the reel, and on the other end we have the tail, the long tail that we're going to be using in a bit. So now you want to obviously be able to actually make the circle stay in the shape you want it to. So you want to get some flat nose pliers out and then working on one side first. Doesn't really matter which one. You want to, just a little note by the way, I kind of mentioned this before, but the outer circle, which means the outer wire, that needs to be the one where you have the 3 wraparound weave, and then on the inside is where you wrap your weaving wire around twice. So just remember that as well as you're shaping it. So you get your flat nose pliers, you start on one side, you take the top wire first, this one, and then you just get right close to the weave, where the weave starts or ends, however you want to look at it, and then you bend it up so you have a nice pretty right angle there, and you just want to shape this a bit out of the way, and then you want to get the next wire underneath that, and you also want to bend that up, but you want to do it so it forms nicely alongside the other one, because you want to be able to weave up here as well, which I'll show you in the next step. So just go a little bit next to the other one. So you have the right angle on the first wire on the top one. So you now place your flat nose pliers just a little bit next to that one, because you want to make sure that the same kind of space there is between them down here continues going up as well. So you don't want them right next to each other. So what you do then is grab and then bend that up as well. And then keep hold of it and just shape this wire a bit, straighten it out a bit and shape it. Don't worry about being too perfect, because this is the next step you'll be working with. So that's about it. You have a nice angle on them now. So now you need to do the same thing on the other side. I will just point one thing out. I'm going to show you what not to do, because you might think, oh, you have more space here, so you'll just leave it like this and then you'll bend it. I'll show you what happens. Again, I'll do it this way. I start with the top one, get right close to the weave, bend that up, so you have the first one bent. You now want to do the other one. Bend it up. And then just shape them. So as you can see here, that looks pretty fine. Nothing wrong with that. But then, because you need to now bring these two together to then form the circle. When you do that, what happens is that the bottom wire you bent is going to come out a bit. You can see that. So it's actually going to end up leaving a bigger gap there. So that's why you want to kind of get it into shape before you bend at least the bottom wire and have them pretty close. So I'm just going to undo that and then show you the right way to do it. So I've now straightened the bottom wire back out. The top one is still bent because that'll be fine. And now I'm just going to get them right close to each other before I actually bend the bottom one. And again, you don't have to have a perfect round shape on this yet. You won't naturally, just because you'll continue to work with it, so it'll bend out of shape anyway. So they're now pretty close together like they need to be. So I'm then going to grab where I want my bend to be and then bend that up. And then just shape them with your fingers. And as you can see, that's much better now. So you're now ready for the next step. So you've now got the weave for your frame and the basic shape finished. So now you want to be able to bring these two parts together. So obviously they'll stay. And also this will then be forming the bail that you can use to attach it to wherever you want. First, what you'll find is, because you just shaped this, the corners are going to be kind of empty. So what I like to do is just, first off, do it on both sides. You just start with one side, it doesn't matter. Just grab the tail and just do a little bit more weaving around the corner. Just continue with the same weave really. And a tip is, when you do that, just go through the wires at the top. There's no reason to sit and try and feed it through. So that's there, and back around the other one. Remember still to push it down. I'm just going to do 2 there and then go back down to the bottom one for the corner again. This is to fill it out so it looks kind of cohesive with the rest of it. So that's pretty good now. And just go to the other side and do the same thing. And this wire is still attached to the reel, because the next thing we'll be doing is then starting to form the bail. And keep pushing it down, nice and tight. Back around the bottom one more time. Just get it on the right side of that corner so there isn't a gap. And just do one more on the bottom here. This is all a bit by eye. You can kind of do it however you think it looks nice. It's just to fill up the corners basically. So now, again, this wire is coming out through the middle. And now what we want to do is actually bring them together. So you hold them like you want them to be. And what I like to just do is just get these and bend them outwards a bit. First of all, so they don't cross over each other. But also then it'll be a lot easier to weave in between them. Because all you need to do is go through at the top instead of feeding it through with the end. That'll be too difficult. Right. So first things first, I just want to attach them together with the 2 center wires. So I've got my wire coming out through the middle of these 2. So now to bring them together, I'm just going to start weaving the 2 middle ones. So I go over this one and then back around the other one. And around that again, down the center, and just back up where you started basically. This is just, again, to fill up a little bit of gap there. So now I want to start the actual weave for the bail. So I go back to my outer one, I wrap around this twice, and now you basically continue in the same kind of weaving you were doing before, but now you have 4 wires instead of 2. So I've done 2 on the outer one, I'm coming back up here, and then I'm going down through the middle. So you're just basically weaving in and out between every wire, like almost like a wave, and then back up through the next one, and every time remember to push it down. And now you're coming out through the 2 outer ones on that side, so you want to wrap it around the outer one twice again, push it down, and then back around one more time, so you're back to coming up through in between them 2. So this weave basically is you're going back and forth once on all the wires, just keep going back and forth in between them, except for the outer 2 wires, you always wrap around 1 extra time. So you're now ready to come back the other way. So I'm coming up between the 2 outer wires. So I now go down through the next 2, which is basically the middle. Push it down. Back up through the next one, the outer ones on the other side. And now around twice on the outer wire. So you're back to continuing over to the other side. So back down the middle, up through the next one. Pushing down so it's nice and tight weave. And then back around the outer one twice. And again, your wire is coming up through the 2 outer wires. Now what you'll find is this can still move up and down because this weave isn't holding them 100%. So what I just like to do is, before I continue with this weave, because they now hold tight together, so they're not going to come apart like this, but they can still move up and down. So to stop this, I grab the tail again from before, and you just basically use this to weave in and out a bit, down just around the bottom area, and also this will fill it out a bit more. But you want to do the same type of weave, so keep going in and out between every wire, just in whatever spaces you can find. Because this will help hold it nice and tight. It's definitely not going to go anywhere as well. So this really is all. There's no specific way of doing this. It's just by eye what you think looks nice and what's going to work wise, and it'll probably be different from time to time anyway. But it's the same basics you're using. So weave in and out between these wires just to extra secure it. If this area doesn't get that neat for you, it's not really a big deal, because at the end we're going to actually be covering this part up. But I'll show you that when we get to it. It's just a matter of finding little spaces to weave in and out between. And pull it tight so it holds it really well. There. See, now it stopped moving. And this will obviously, even if there's still a bit of movement, it's enough now that it's going to stay where you want it. So you can now go back to your weave on the bail, push it down as much as you can to make it as nice and tight as possible, and you just continue with the same weave that you were doing. So you go in and out between each wire, and on the outer 2 wires, when you reach them, you go around them twice. and back down the middle. And the more you do it now, you can slowly start to see the nice weave forming. And you still want to be doing this with your wire attached to the reel, ideally, because this part is going to take up a fair bit of wire as well. So just keep going back and forth, wrapping around, pushing it down. Keep it nice and tight. And as you go, because these wires obviously you've shaped at the bottom, they're in the right position, but as you move up they might be a little bit out of shape, so you just manipulate them as you go into the shape that you want them to be exactly. Because what I like to do as well with the bail, to make it just a little bit more interesting, you can easily just leave it like this, continue in this way, so it just becomes one straight piece basically. But what I actually like to do is just, I'll probably start it very shortly, is to start moving out a little bit, so the bail graduates out and then it'll graduate back in again, because I just think that gives it a nice look. And it's your choice really, you don't have to do that. I just think it gives a bit extra detail. And the way you do that is pretty simple really. You don't really do anything differently than what you're doing now. All you start to do is purposely manipulating your 1mm wires to kind of slowly graduate outwards. And then you just continue with the weave, but you make sure that these wires have the shape that you want them to have. So gradually make them go outwards, continue your weave, and then your weave will gradually get a bit wider. And you want to keep manipulating them as you go, because obviously as you're working with it as well, it can change a bit. Keep pushing your weave down. Have your wires in the right position. And this is all you do really. Continue with this, make it as long as you want it to be. It needs to be fairly long, longer than you realise, because what is going to happen is this weave is going to be a certain length, and then what we're going to do is fold it backwards. So it basically needs to be about twice the length that you want the final bail to be. But I'll show you that when we get to it. You just keep going, however you like yours to look. You can make your complete own style of it. This is just the basics. So keep doing this. If you want to graduate it in and out like I told you that I'm doing, do that. If not, then do whatever else you want to do. And then once you reach your desired length, then I'll meet you back here. Now I've finished off making the length that I'm going to use for my bail. So I've finished weaving, and the weaving wire I've used is still attached to the reel. And as you can see on my weave, what I've done is I've started just where the wires met each other, and then as I've gone up I've graduated outwards, and then when I reach what I want it to be the top of my bail, I've started graduating inwards again to go back to the same, to finish it off in the same way that I started off. So if you split it down the middle, it's almost like a mirror image on both sides, you know, as well as it can be. This is just the way I like to do it. I think it looks nice. You don't have to. You can just make it one straight piece. That's completely up to you. So now we've finished with all the main weaving really. So now we can actually cut off our wire. Now I'm not going to cut off the wire like right close to where I've finished, because I still want to use it to attach some things to it and then start creating the tree as well. So what you want to do is cut it off so you have a substantial length still to work with. There's no precise measurement. Just do roughly what you think you're going to need. So I've now cut it off the reel, and again the length of the actual, this piece to make the bail, there's no measurement, it's all how long or how big you want it to be. What we're going to be doing is folding this over, so it'll end up being about that size. So what we want to do now is actually shape the bail. To do this, you still have these tails. Don't worry too much about them, just try and like push them out of the way a little bit. But you need to still use them. So get out anything like a pen, anything else you have really, not something that's too big, just that's the size that you really want it to be. I put my pen behind, towards the middle, and then all I do is I fold my weave over it backwards. And then you can take the pen out of whatever you're using and just continue just shaping it a bit and push it forward a little bit. There. You see we have a nice rounded shape on there now. You can obviously make this smaller, bigger, whatever you want it to use it for really. So that is basically going to be your bail. And now again, this is the good thing about this weave, because what you need to do now is you want to work basically both layers at the same time, so to secure them together. To do this, I've ended up on the outside here, so what I do is I go around the outside and then push it through to come out on the front. And you can do this because the weave you've made has got nice gaps in it, so there's plenty of space for that. And again, there's no set way of doing this, it's all what you think will look nice on your piece and where your gaps are, how it fits and that. So you just work with it really. So you pull that tight so they come nice and tight together, and then from the front you want to go back in around the next section and try and come back through both layers as well. And you pull your wire through. And again, I'm now coming out between these two wires. So I want to then go over to the next space to secure the next section in. And this is really, it's going to blend in with your weave just because you still going in and out in between your wires, but at the same time you're fastening it. And just take your time with this. It can be a bit fiddly because you're having to go through both layers. But it's possible. And sometimes when you're working as well with the end of your wire, it'll kind of kink a bit, which will make it difficult to work with, so just straighten it out again like that. Or worst case scenario, if it kind of is kinked badly, you can always cut a bit of the end off and start fresh. So I've got that through to the front. So again, I want to pull this and now it's coming out from the front. So I want to go back in through the weave from the front towards the back. And then again catch both your layers. Now mine's coming out through the side. If it does that, all you can do is just feed it through there underneath. And again, pull this tight. And do the last one as well. You want to make sure to catch all of your thicker gauge wires, because you don't want them to be able to move around. Like so. And then really from here, because you've now caught all your wires, you can kind of just go in and out a bit until you feel that it's secure enough. I like just basically going to one side once and then coming back around really. But you can do whatever you like, just as long as you continue to feel like it's pretty secure. So I've now weaved and fastened this so I feel like it's really secure and it's definitely not going to go anywhere. So I now have my tail coming out from here. And what I want to do is I want this tail to end up basically similar to where the other tail is, but just in a different place, because then we'll be using that to help form the tree when we get to that point. So all you need to do is get your tail and then the weave that you made to form the frame, you want to now come through there. And again, because of the type of weave it is, there's nice little gaps there for you to get your wire through. So you just poke it through in a nice space so you feel it's going to blend in. And you now have it coming through the front. So you have these two wires now. Still your weaving wires, and they are going to help then to form the branches of your tree. So we now have both the frame and the bale ready. Now all that's left to do is make the actual tree. And for this, like I said, we'll be using these, but then we obviously need to add some more wires to be able to make the tree. For this you want to go back to your 0.4 wire that you've been using the whole time. And now you want to cut off some lengths of this. Now what I normally do is, I just see roughly how long I need to be able to make the trees. So you obviously want it to be able to reach, but then add extra because you'll be twisting it and moulding it and stuff. So get a nice length and then kind of double it over, because you'll use one length of wire to form two branches. So now I have a decent length. And I just start on one side and work my way down, and then I'll go to the other side. So this is where your two first wires are coming out. Now these back ones, just trying to push them out of the way a little bit. Don't misshape them too much, but we're just going to use them at the end to finish off the piece, so just make sure they're not in your way. The distance between the wires, in other words between the branches, is really up to you. It depends on obviously what kind of beads you're using as well, and anything like that really. I'm going to be using fairly small chips, so I like my branches to not be too far apart, but obviously still separated enough so it doesn't look too much either. So what I do is I go along the frame to the point where I want to start a new branch, and then I stick the end of my new wire, I stick that through from the back through the weave of your frame, and then pull that through to roughly about the middle. Now that's another branch, and then I get the other end that's coming out through the back, and what I like to do is turn it around, and then in your weave you can kind of see spaces that are really equally apart. So what I do is I go through the back again, but in the very next space, so you're kind of keeping them nice and close together, because what we need to do with this wire is move that over to the next point where you want the next branch to be. So I come up and down through the spaces basically, back to the front, through the very next space again. This is purely to get your wire in position, and you don't really have to worry about how it looks because this really blends in with the weave, and in some cases some of the beads in that can hide it anyway. Before you pull this tight, what I suggest you do, because if you just pull it, what will happen is when it pulls, this part will go back and you'll then have a gap on the back side. So to avoid that, I normally get my flat nose pliers and hold them down where I had the loop before basically, to avoid it pulling so that comes loose a bit. You pull that tight, and now on this side it's nice and tight, and on that side it's nice and tight, and you just continue weaving from one space to the next, from the back to the front and front to the back. And again I'll use my flat nose pliers to be able to pull that nice and tight, and keep moving until you reach the space where you want your next branch to be. Gonna do one more space. And pull that tight. So now this is where I want my next branch to come out. So that's now 4 branches you've got ready there. And then you just keep doing the same thing, move your way down to wherever you want your branches to be, have them come as far down as you want them to. It's completely up to you then what you want to do with your design. How many branches you want also depends on the type of beads and the size of beads you're using, so keep doing that, add as many as you want, and then I'll show you what to do next. Now I've attached all the wires to form my branches. So as you can see, it's a little bit of a wire mess, but just take it easy and you'll be fine working with it. Do a little bit at a time. Now what you want to do as well is you want to get your beads ready. In my case, I'm using some agate chips. That's like reddish brownish colour. So it'll make a really nice autumn tree for this one. Now I quite like using chips for this tree of life. I think it gives it a really nice look. A little bit more natural, but again, the design's completely up to you. You choose to work with whatever you want to work with. What you need to do now is obviously you need to feed your bead on all the individual pieces of wire. But other than that, really, the design is up to you. Because what I will do is I feed beads on each one, but then I will group them together when I twist them. Sometimes I'll choose 2 wires, sometimes 3, to make it a little bit more natural looking, really. So it's not all too uniform. So start feeding on your beads. And I recommend that, say if you're starting with using 2 wires and twisting, or even 3, just do them and then twist and then move on to the next ones. Because if you feed beads onto all your wires and you start twisting, I can pretty much guarantee it's going to be one big mess and you're going to have beads all over the place. So just do a few at a time and take your time with it. So I've now stranded beads onto my first 2 wires. I'm trying to just push these out of the way a little bit. Now what you want to do is make sure that your beads are pushed all the way up to the wires, up to the frame. And then you want to grab them, hold on to your beads, and just twist your wires. Now to begin with, you don't really want to twist them too much or twist them too far. It's just basically to be able to hold them in place. So that's fine for now, because you can always come back and retwist them. Now all you do is move on. Like I said, I really recommend that you do one section at a time. So say I was to use 3 wires for the next set of branches, I would feed beads onto that and then finish with that and then twist them together, just like here. So you decide what you want to do, cluster up, how you want to cluster them up to twist them. That's your decision, your design. So do that and then I'll show you how to put the tree together. So I've now finished off adding all my beads to all the branches, and in some places here I've grouped 2 together, 2 wires, grouped 2 on that one, and I've grouped 3 in some places, so alternate between grouping 3 and 2 together. I just think that helps make it look more natural in a way. So really all that's left to do now is finish off the rest of the tree and then attach it to the bottom. To do this, it's really up to you how you do it and where you start, but what I like to do is take a few at a time. I don't like to just grab them all and twist them, because I don't think that looks that natural. So what I like to do is grab 2 at the top, doesn't matter which ones, that's your choice, it's whatever you think will look nice in your design. And then I'm going to grab these 2. And then I'm just going to continue twisting these together and make sure I leave a bit of a space. At the top. So you can kind of see the branches a bit before they reach the leaves, the beads in this case. So there you have 2 wrapped together, right at the top. And now you can then decide what it is what you want to do. I'll then grab the next one, twist this a bit more on its own so it becomes long enough. And I would say I wouldn't really worry about keeping the twist straight, because branches on a tree aren't really straight anyway. So if they have a few bends and kinks and stuff, that actually just makes it look nicer, I think. So I'll grab this one now, and then I'll kind of have it reach down to the point where I want this branch to join the middle section of the tree. So the two that I started out with are going to be the beginning of the rest of the tree, and this is where I'm going to join the other branches onto. So all I do is place it where I want it to go and grab it with my fingers so they're not going to go anywhere, and then I twist this in with the other ones that I'd already twisted. And you don't want to twist it all the way down just yet, because you want to kind of gradually do that as you go. And then again, it's up to you what you want to do. I think I'm going to take one on this side, the next one on the other side. Remember, obviously, when you're adding in your other branches, you want to always twist the same way. Otherwise, you're going to end up actually twisting it to come undone. Just twisting this a bit more. And that's ready now. So feed it, I put it then underneath the other ones so I can twist it the same way. And place it where I want it to be. And then start twisting. There, that's that one. And then on this side, I think what I want to do is actually, I'll just twist this one a bit more first to get it long enough. What I'll do is I'll twist these two together before I add them to the trunk. So it's kind of like one branch forming into two. So I'm just going to put them at the point where I want them to start, and then twist. And twist it long enough so that the twist reaches the rest of the tree. And then put them at the point where you want them to join. Hold it down with your fingers so they don't go anywhere while you're twisting. And just twist this whole thing together, avoiding the last branch that I've got left. It's going to be the last one I add in. And this, I want to kind of come a bit more straight in like this, because I want to add something to it at the end, and I'll show you that in a bit. Just twist it a bit more on its own. Good enough. Feed it underneath. I want this to come in about there, and I want to give it a bit extra wire, a bit extra length in this piece, because I'll show you how we just finish it off at the end, just to, in my opinion, improve the design even more, the way it looks. Right? So all your branches are now twisted together. And you just want to twist the whole thing down a little bit, almost to the point so the way you twist your wires meets your frame, not quite, but almost all the way down. Because what you want to do now is obviously be able to attach the tree to the bottom part of your frame. But before you just add the bottom, this is the place where you kind of want to make sure that you have the shape that you want it to be. So if you want it round, make it as round as possible. Obviously you can do this along the way and try and keep it how you want it. So when you've done that and you're happy with your shape, you now want to kind of separate out your wires a bit. I like to take groups of 2 to 3 wires and keep them together. You might have to just untwist a little bit depending how far you're going down with your twist. Again, this is all completely how you want to do it. There's no wrong or right about this. It all depends on the look you want. I'm going to keep these 3 wires together. I'm going to do them 2. I've got 2 on the other side. I just kind of try and keep the wires that are naturally close together. What I kind of like to try and do is split them into sections of 6. It doesn't have to be, it can be more or less, it's up to you. But I just think that that looks pretty nice. So split them all up the way you want them. I've got 2, 3, got 2 here, 3 there, 2 there, and then I'm left with these. I'll put that one with them. And I'll put that one there. So that's 3, and then I've got 2 coming down here. So split up your wires however you want them to be, and I'll show you how to start forming the roots. To do that, what I do is I work on one section at a time. I usually start from one side and move my way over to the other side. It doesn't really matter where, or you can start in the middle if you prefer that and work your way out. But what I do is take one section at a time, and you want to twist them just as you've been doing with the branches and the trunk, just to make sure that the right groups stay together. You don't end up mixing them up. Right. So I think I'll start with one of the bottom ones. Focus on twisting that so it's not about just keeping them together, it's also so they look nice, so they have the look that you want them to have. Just keep twisting them until your twist reaches your frame, because what you want to do now is split up your wires. You might have to just untwist it a little bit to get all the way up to the beginning of your frame, because you want it to blend in as much as you can. So that's about where I want it to be. So what you do now is take one wire at a time, and then all you do is feed them through your frame, because like from previously, we have all these gaps in the frame because of the kind of weave we did. So again, that's the gaps that you want to use to attach your roots with. So just put your wire through a gap wherever you choose, and then pull it through. And then I like to come around the inside of the frame so it pulls around. Because what you're doing now is attaching it and fastening it so it's going to stay secure and won't come undone. And then you put it back in another space. This is again just about doing it as you go, figuring out what works for you, because it'll be different from time to time. Just pull that tight. And I normally do about 3 wraps per wire, because you want to make sure that it's going to stay. And back in through the weave and pull tight. And then back around again, because now I want to finish off the wire. And what you want to make sure of, because if you're going to be wearing this as like say a pendant or it's going to be a piece of jewellery or something, you want to make sure you finish off your wire so there's no sharp ends and it doesn't catch on anything. So I now have it coming through the inside of the frame again. So what I do is I then get my cutters and cut it quite close down to where it's coming out, but just with a tiny little bit of wire. Because what you want to do is then get your flat nose pliers and then right where that wire sticks up, you want to squish it to like as it was going through the weave again, but obviously it's not quite going through the weave. So you want to squish it down to basically go in between the weave, the end, and then feel it. If it's good enough you can't feel it, then it's fine, and that's tucked away nicely. And then you do the same thing with the other wire from the same root. Try and keep it as close as you can to the other one. And come back around the frame, the inside of the frame. Pull it tight. It's going to be nice and secure. And then back around the frame a couple of times. And through again, pull it tight, and I'm going to come up through the inside of the frame, pull it nice and tight, and then I'm going to cut it off like before, pretty close, so you only have a very slight tip left of the wire, and then push that through, down through the middle really. Feel it. If it feels fine, then move on to the next one. Just get these out of the way and twist them from where the tree starts down until where the frame is. This is all about just doing what you think looks nice, really. There. And then separate your wires out a bit again. Because like before, you'll be working with one wire at a time. So when you get to the point where you're happy that you want your root to be attached to the frame, and then you just start attaching again. Take one wire at a time, feed it through the frame a few times. So do that with all your roots, and then I'll show you what to do next. So I've now finished attaching all my roots, and now all that's left to do is a few finishing touches and then it'll be done. So I'll turn it over to the back, and as you can see we still have these wires left. What we want to do is finish them off, to first of all get rid of them so they don't stick out like this, but then just to help finish off some detail of the piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the two outer wires up and around to the front, so up past your bail and then around to the front. Same with the other one. Try and get them pretty even looking. And then now you have them coming out towards the front. So let's finish these off first. So what I want to do is get wire cutters out again, because you now want to cut these wires to a shorter length, and you want to make sure that they're just about the same length as well. So just cut them at the same time. Could be a little bit shorter. Right. So they're pretty much the same length now. So what we want to do is make some spirals. To do that, you want to get out some round nose pliers, and then you work with one wire at a time. You want to grab it right as far to the edge as you can, and I like to have these spirals as small as they can be, so I want to start right at the tip of my round nose pliers, and you just start making a loop like this. Now what I like to do before I continue making the spiral is I've made this loop, and as you can see it is more like a loop shape rather than a round shape. So what I like to do is just, you've made this loop and you go in and just cut off the very end, because what will happen is when you then continue to make your loop, the center is a lot more round now, and I just think it's a little nice detail really. It makes it look a bit more professionally finished off. So you want to keep spiraling. Now using my flat nose pliers, you grab hold of the wire, like clamp it down nice and tight so you don't have your wire scratching around the inside of your pliers. Now just roll that down. That's one done, and I'll just do the other one before I put them into place. Again, I'm going to start rolling as far to the tip as you can. And you just get your cutters and cut the very tip to make it more of a round shape rather than a loop shape. And then you continue spiraling. A nice and tight spiral. You can make them look however you want really. They don't have to look like this. This is just the kind of design that I like. You just keep working the spiral in, and then let's put it down a little bit more. And the other one as well, because you basically want them to meet up now. So they're now sat like this. So now I get flat nose pliers again, and I bend them over to the front of the piece. So that's on one side, and the other one. Grab a hold of that. And bend it to the front of the piece. And you can use your fingers to just flatten them and put them into position completely. So you have two spirals up there now. And you can adjust them to however you want them to be. This is just how I like them to sit. And then as you can see, if you've had a weave in there that's been a bit messy, you're not quite happy with, this will then help cover that up, so it won't matter anyway. And then you have two pieces left at the back. Now these I'll cut down as well to the same length. So they are roughly the same length. There. And I just want to start moving them up in position a little bit, still with enough space to create spirals. Could do just cutting that off a bit more. Yeah. So they're in this position now, ready to just form some spirals. Again, the same kind of spiral, so as far to the edge of your nose pliers as you can. Make the first loop, go in and cut off the very tip of it, the very end of the wire, and then continue spiraling. You get a much more round center of it rather than a loop, really. Flatten that down, go to the other side, spiral this wire the same direction, and then just cut off the very tip of the wire. Keep spiraling. And just grab your flat nose pliers and flatten down the spirals. And then you want to just push these into position. All I do is push them. I want these to sit the side of the bail. To basically cover up any join you can see, or you can see into the inside of the bail. So you just push them to that position. You can use your pliers if you want to, but maybe just to adjust it a bit here and there. Otherwise use your fingers. And there you go. You now have spirals all the way around. So that covers up any gaps, any bit of messiness, and it just gives really nice detail to the piece. So you can basically say your piece is done now. All that I like to do is just go back in and do a bit of detail here and there. It'll just make it look a bit more nice and detailed, and in a way a bit more realistic. So what I do is I get my flat nose pliers again, and then I want to shape the branches and the roots a bit more, because if you're looking at a real tree, they don't have like nice straight curvy branches and roots. It's all very kinked and bent and stuff. So what I do is I just go in quite randomly and with my flat nose pliers and do some kinks in the wire that are twisted and that. It's no wrong or right here, it's all down to your design, how you want it to look. You can see the differences in them few branches. Just think it adds some nice detail to it. So however you want it to look, it's completely up to you. Just keep going in until you think it looks nice. Like so. I'm pretty happy with the branches like that. So now I'll do the same with the roots, just a little bit. Can you see just by doing a few how different it starts to look already? I just think it just gives it that nice finishing touch. Because a tree, like I said, isn't perfectly straight or rounded in any way. So, I'm pretty happy with that. Now basically you can say it's done now. So now you can leave it at this if you want to. Your tree is basically done. Or you can just add a little bit of detail if you want to. I like to just add one little extra thing. For this I'm going to use some black wire. This is 0.6 wire. Doesn't have to be that specific, it's just what I'm using. And what I do is I just cut off a little piece. It doesn't have to be very big at all. Try and straighten it out as much as you can. And then I just cut off another little piece. Again, not very big. And then what I do with these, so I keep one straight, try and straighten it as much as you can, and then I just take one wire, hold it in one hand, take the other one, you just want to start anywhere towards the middle, and then start coiling, wrapping your wire around one wire around the other one basically. Again, your wire will bend as you do this, but just keep straightening it out. Try and get your wraps and your coils as tight as you can to give a uniform look. You can always push them together, either with your fingers, your nails, or if you prefer to use pliers. The only thing I will say is by using, like this, a coloured wire, you got to be a lot more careful regarding pliers because it can strip the colour much more easily. So you just keep wrapping your wire around the other one like this until you have enough. So I've now wrapped my wire to the length of coil that I want it to be onto the other wire. And what I do then is I get my cutters again, cut off the excess on both sides, and then you can just use your pliers to fold down the ends so they don't stick out and they won't catch. That's the thing you always want to make sure of. Anything you make that's going to be worn by anyone, that anything that could scratch or catch anything, you need to do your best to get rid of that. So there. So you now have a little piece of coil on the same type of wire. So all I do then is grab hold of the coil, and then I bend up the other wire straight up, and I do that on both sides. So it now looks like this. So you get your little swing, you now have the basic shape ready. So now all you need to do is attach it to your tree. So you figure out about where you want your swing to hang. And then you want to just bend it. And then place it and just double check before you fasten it. It's going to be a pretty good height, I think. So then you pull this back through, because then you just want to make a little wrapped loop. And like I say, because this is black wire, black coloured wire, try and avoid using your pliers on it if you can, because it will mark it really easily. It will scratch off the colour. So you then just wrap it around the branch and pull tight and make a wrapped loop. And it'll bend out of shape as you're doing it, but you can always fix that after. Wrap it around as many times as you want to, just to secure it, because you don't want it to have a chance to come undone. And then when I'm around the back, I'll grab my cutters, cut off the excess, and just get my flat nose to just try gently and press in that end. And try and do it gently to avoid any colour coming off if you can help it. So back to the front. You can just straighten that out a bit so you're sure where you want the other one to hang. So you feed this through. To reach the other part of the branch. And attach it when you're happy. And then feed the end through to again make a wrap loop, and just double check you're happy where it is before you actually wrap in the loop. Because if you're not and you've already wrapped it, you'll have to pretty much redo it. Yep. And again, I will wrap it around once or twice so it won't come undone. Again, it's now at the back, so I'll flip it over and cut off the excess, and then gently squeeze down the end. Just cut off a bit more, actually, a bit too long. Squeeze it down, and then your swing is attached, and you can go back in and just readjust it a little bit until you're 100% happy. And you can also, if you feel like your branch is going to be out of shape, just reshape that as well. So that's it. You can obviously fasten this how you want to. You can make it a bit tighter if you want, if you don't want it to move this much. This is just for demonstration anyway. But that's so you get the idea of it. So that's going to be a Tree of Life done now. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.